Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Inside Line podcast where the industry finds its edge. Hey there, Nick Sargent, president of SIA. How are you doing today?
I am good. Good to be here. Thanks, Kristin.
Well, I'm pretty stoked for selfish reasons. Today we get a masterclass, Nick. Our guest is Issa Sawabini, owner of the legendary agency Fuse and an esteemed SIA board member. Welcome to the show, Issa.
Thanks so much, Kristin and Nick. Good to see you both. Really excited to jump in today.
And I just have to say, congratulations on 30 years with Fuse. I mean, high five.
Yeah, we're so excited. It's our 30th year in business. Started in 1995. Burton Snowboards was our first client. Our first project was running the Burton US Open Snowboard Championships event. And it's been an incredible 3 decades and still super involved in the winter sports space and loving every day.
Well, we're really, really so honored to have you with us today, Issa. We know that you're an expert in action and outdoor sports and youth culture, but you're really going to help us ideally understand where youth culture is and how to best connect with our consumers. So let's dive in.
Let's do this. Issa, you and I have known each other for, I would say, 25 years. Certainly when I was at Burton was our first interaction. But the one thing I don't know about you is where and when did you get into winter sports, and how did this happen on your journey to Fuse?
Yeah, so, it all started when I was born in Vermont, where it's cold and snowy, but I grew up in Buffalo, New York, where it got colder and potentially snowier. So, winter sports was part of who we are, and anyone from Western New York will attest to that lake effect snow from Lake Erie, stacking up 3-4 feet overnight, and you went out, you played, and, for me, it was about going to Kissing Bridge, little resort, just outside of Buffalo, 550 feet of vert, and that's where we went every time it snowed. The deepest POW days, with, fun elevation. But, we'd also get to take trips to Vermont when I was a kid, so really got excited about the Green Mountains. Ended up going to the University of Vermont and stayed there ever since. So I actually started at Fuse as an intern right after I graduated, and was fortunate enough to become a partner about 4 years later, and have been running the company ever since.
That's
awesome. What an incredible story. So obviously we're going to get into early influences and whatnot, and how Vermont has shaped your passion for youth culture and outdoor sports, which I think everybody needs, an update on that, especially in this day and age, because everything's changing so quickly. So we're so excited to have you here today. I would love to just kind of dive right in on that topic, because that's what everybody's waiting to hear from you on. I mean, you've played such a pivotal role over the years in the industry in that way. So I'm just going to land the big one right now. What is your approach to youth marketing? Even though the landscape keeps changing, it's like the worst moving target, right?
Yes, I think, one of the common misperceptions is that marketing is just about what platform consumers are on. And to us, the platform is the tool by which you'll deliver your brand message and tell your brand story. At one point, young people just read magazines. Then they had MySpace. Then they had Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and it will constantly change. So understanding behavior is really important. But if you can dig into the values and the foundations of young people and figure out where you intersect with that, it's much more powerful. So for us, we like to think about brand experiences. How does a consumer spend time with your brand? It could be in a piece of social content, it could be in store, it could be at an event, but we like to think about that extended interaction. What do you have to say? What do you have to share with them? And then you think about where and how to go deliver it and on what platform. So I think people can get caught up always chasing the next platform, and you absolutely have to do that, but take a step back and think big picture. What do you stand for? What do you want to share with that audience? And then go find out the right way to do it.
You guys have been experts with consumer interaction, certainly with youth interaction, and you guys have, connected that bridge so many times, and you've done it so well. Tell me about the wall of shame. I'm really interested to know about this wall of shame, because we've all seen people come and go, companies come and go, but tell me about the wall of shame.
So early on, when we were getting going, we really focused exclusively on action sports and outdoor sports. Since then, we've expanded and we work in music and gaming and culinary and do lots of other things. But in the early days, call it the late 90s, early 2000s, lots of big corporations were coming into the action sports space. And we would consistently find their advertising and point out what was wrong with it. They may have flipped an image or photoshopped something wrong, or they selected a photo with a terrible grab or bad conditions, or a big old goggle gap. There was always something that you could point to that whoever was doing that piece of creative didn't fundamentally understand the sports. And so for us, I think we thought we could just call those companies up, they'd hire us on the spot, and we'd fix everything. What we learned was that's not quite how agency relationships worked. For us, it was the inspiration to always deliver great work, to always live by the motto that we could be authentic and not alienate the core enthusiasts and still grow sales at a high level. And so that really helped kind of steer us down a path of working with some of the biggest brands in the world. I've worked with 150 plus brands in my career, something like $25 billion brands. So we've helped big brands come into this space, and I think we've always done our best to help them do it right and avoid some of those mistakes, those stereotypes, those inconsistencies and misunderstandings that have come along the way. So the Wall of Shame was that inspiration. I will not name names of who was on.
No names, please, no. I've had my own share of brands that I've worked with too, but I think it's really, you guys have created this space where you are the experts when it comes to youth culture, and there's so many companies that call on you to get that connection, and most importantly, you mentioned it just a second ago, that authentic connection and really achieve that authenticity. Where do you get that inspiration, authenticity, and what is driving that connection, not just today, but for tomorrow's consumer as well?
Yeah, so I think, we've kind of successfully navigated millennials, Gen Z, we have Gen Alpha on the way, right? So 13-year-old and younger, that's that new generation coming up. But I'll start by saying I don't love generational terms. I think they're constructs that are built for convenience. So right now, if you think about Gen Z, they include teenagers who are in middle school, in high school. It also includes college students, young adults, and even those in their mid to late 20s with kids. Those are a lot of different life stages. So if you try to say you're going to market to all millennials, think about how different it would be to try to market to a young parent versus a middle schooler, right? So I think for us, we always start to look at that life stage and who are we really trying to target? Most brands aren't trying to get all of them, but let's say you are. You can't use the same message for that high schooler that you're going to do with that college student. You've got to adjust your tone. You need to think about your tactics. So for us, double clicking inside that generation, inside that big age range, and thinking about life stage is the starting point. Mm-hmm. We also
ask the question. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I said we spend a lot of time out in the field talking to consumers, do a lot of research, and we're connecting with the brands who do it right, and trying to find ways to collaborate and work together and kind of help to fuel the excitement around what brands can do in the outdoor space.
Yep.
I think looking at the fact that you started with Burton and then right in with that with their premier event has basically put you in the habit of always being in front of the consumer. And that is a giant brand experience extension, like right out of the gate. I imagine that probably shaped your approach with all of your work at Fuse.
Yeah, experiential marketing is a really important piece of what we do. So not only will we execute at events like the X Games or the new Rockstar Energy Open, but we'll also be this weekend, on any weekend, we'll be at an event somewhere. We do thousands of events all the time. So it could be a Formula One event, it could be the Super Bowl, but creating that experience, whether it's a big event or a small event, whether you're at a local, ski hill or, the biggest winter sports event in the world at the Olympics, understanding that interaction, making sure you're delivering authentic and exciting and entertaining experiences, you do it no matter what the size of the event.
Now, Nick, I know I'm probably asking a question that you want to ask right now, so please chime in. But when you think about, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay. I was going to say, when you think about what you just said about events and how this landscape has changed over the last 5-6 years, I don't really want to talk about the pandemic, and we won't, but it definitely changed events, and it's currently still changing budgets. And I would love for you to maybe give some advice to our membership and our audience here today in terms of what's important for them to prioritize in being at these events, embedding with consumers, and really understanding like where the consumer is today and having that experience with a brand.
Yeah, so I think if you're thinking about kind of consumer events and put aside the retailer, supplier relationships, we still believe that it's extremely important to get out there and interact with your consumers. So whether you're creating an event in your retail space or as a brand, you're going out and, there are so many great events out there right now that you can sponsor, you can show up and activate. And there really has been great innovation in the outdoor and snow sports space. New events are kind of evolving to the new digital landscape. They're creating new competitive formats. It's extremely entertaining. And the thing that I will tell you is that, events attract fans, right? Not just participants. So when you're thinking about your marketing spend, fans have an opportunity to bring a larger audience, to hopefully bring new people into your universe, be that on equipment or apparel. So we like to think about events as this intersection between the participant and the fans, and that opportunity to hopefully grow the sport for everybody, to bring people in who want to come watch and have a great time, take a look around, and hopefully be ready to take that lesson or buy that next pair of skis, or maybe get back into a sport that they had left many years ago.
You guys, aside from the interaction with consumers and brands, you guys are also leaders in the space. So how do you manage that leadership role in activation and youth and events, specifically with the brands that you work with?
Yeah, I think we try very hard to make sure we're bringing great new original activation ideas. We work to develop responsible kind of planning. So, sourcing giveaway items that people actually want instead of trash that they'll throw away at the end of the day. We don't need to fill up landfills. We want to make sure that, we're smart about, logistics, right? Where do we keep all the stuff so that we're not flying it and driving it all over the country? So we're really smart about that. So we take kind of pride in doing it as sustainably as possible as we can, but then also making sure that we're doing our best to help the sponsors pick and choose the partnerships that make the most sense for them and for the consumer. And that can be really hard. There's a lot of great options out there. So how do you figure out, where the brand best fits, and hopefully how that sponsorship dollar can support the careers of athletes, help grow the event, create content, grow the sport, bring more fans in. So there's a lot riding on at least some of the big corporate sponsorships to keep pieces of the ecosystem moving forward. And we really do take great responsibility in trying to make sure we're doing right by the consumer and by the sport. That will help our brands grow.
Yeah. Again, it's like, you guys do it so well, and you're doing it so frequently. It's almost mind numbing to think how many activations you guys are doing in a year, let alone multiple years. But what's the biggest shift that you've seen in how millennials versus Gen Z want to be interacted with, not only to, but also by brands?
Yeah. So I think, if you go between those two generations, right, our Gen Z mobile native, right? Everyone has had a phone. There's a small group of the older millennials who kind of just started to get into e-com and other things, but there are clear expectations of multi-screen experiences, mobile experiences. And one of the biggest challenges is that Gen Z just has so many things to choose from, so many places they can go, so many things they can do with their time, and so many things basically on a supercomputer in their pocket, right? And so how do you get everybody, to kind of look up from their phones, look around, and enjoy the outdoors? And so that's a challenge. Or do you embrace mobile and think about how can you, engage? And I think one of the tips we always give brands is, make sure you kind of understand the consumer and engage on their terms, right? So if you say, hey, we want everybody to put their phones down, that's not going to happen. Not going to happen. The phones are coming, right? So how do you make sure that the phones are part of the experience? Do you create scavenger hunt type experiences? Do you embrace geolocation? Do you embrace social in a way that makes some sense? So, we've absolutely started to integrate more mobile based experiences into our live events, and also started to think about, how can you use that to enhance the fan experience, from push notifications and apps at a simple level to other kind of real-time scoring. And while we don't do a lot in sports betting, you're starting to see sports betting come into the outdoor space, and you're going to see more and more of that happening, in the near future.
Yeah, right. So all of that being said, how do you measure whether a brand's activation is enhancing or detracting from that consumer experience?
Yeah, so we've got lots of research that we do on site. We're able to talk to consumers. Net promoter score type things happen at the event or kind of resort level, right? So I think there's that research that's saying, hey, did you have a good time this weekend? And then we're out there talking to consumers and making sure they're enjoying kind of the experience that they have. My next tip is give away free stuff. Young people love free things, but just do it right. Every kid, still loves stickers, and there's lots of good things that you can do to kind of leave a lasting impression. Don't just try to sell all day long, right? Think about how do you introduce the brand? How do you deliver on some fun? And how do you make sure that they walk away saying, that was an awesome brand? And we try to hold ourselves to make sure we're not just out there selling all day long.
Yeah, right.
I have to also ask, I imagine 30 years in, you've had some clients for many, many years. Am I assuming correctly?
Yeah, we've had.
So how do you, go ahead.
Long-standing relationships with many brands.
I was just asking, how have you walked maybe more of a legacy brand that might have seen a really strong success doing something specific, or maybe has a leader that has been in the chair a long time that's really kind of holding on to the legacy and where they have been, and you and your team are trying to encourage them to move forward. What are some things that you can throw out to our audience here today? Because many of them are running these beautiful legacy global brands.
I think we're fortunate enough to be working with some really forward-thinking leaders at some great brands. And, most of our clients are never kind of satisfied with the status quo. They understand that we have to continue to evolve and innovate. For us, it's not necessarily on the product side, but it is from the consumer engagement side. So our strategies on content and social have to change. And I think it's one of the interesting things, especially when it comes to maybe legacy leadership. More often we will hear that their kids did this one thing, right? So getting the leaders' kids involved, because that personal experience, especially for folks who've kind of been leading for a long time, they see it happening with the young people in their household. And I can't tell you how many deals that has unlocked or opportunities that's unlocked, because they go ask their family and the kids know that's the right choice.
Oh my God, such a good point.
Yeah, yep. Kids are still leading us, whether we know it or like it. That's for sure.
The spending influence of young people is in the billions of dollars, but the decision-making influence of young people in the household of CEOs is something somebody should study, because it is something that comes up all the time.
That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about that. When you think about youth culture and involvement and growth in the sport, and we know, there are some barrier to entry issues. And I know that you're a proponent of large and small retail. I think it's just gathering places. And I would just love for you to kind of talk a little bit about how maybe you'd approach a large resort on this topic of youth engagement and nurturing and a smaller one.
Yeah, and so I think a little bit about probably two audiences when I think about growing the sport, and when Nick and the rest of the SII board and I sit and talk about this, I see some opportunities. One of them is we've got incredible past products, incredible value. If you're an enthusiast skier and you get one of the great products that are out there, when I was in college, I wanted to hit the mountain 100 days a year, right? You start doing the math, and skiing and snowboarding becomes very affordable on a per day basis. But one of the most expensive experiences, the off the street, I want to learn to ski and snowboard today. I didn't know I wanted to do this before. And that walk up experience to learn is very expensive. If you know you want to learn this season and you get out ahead of it, there's great ways to get good prices on lessons and lift tickets, but it's very hard to make a last minute decision. And so that is not unlike other entertainment. If I know that I want to go to a concert and I buy the ticket when it goes on sale, I can get the face price. But if I decide last minute I want to go to a concert, I'm probably going to the secondary market and things get expensive. I'm not sure that learning to ski and snowboard should run the same economic model as a Taylor Swift ticket, right? There's got to be a better way to let people decide right now that they want to go ski and snowboard, that they've made the leap, that they've gotten over their fears and anxieties, and then to be able to get to the window and make it affordable. So to me, that's a big opportunity. I don't have the answer, but I think, we have very much prioritized early decision making in past purchasing, which I understand and I appreciate, but I think for those newbies, there's got to be a different answer. And to me, it then sends most of those folks to the community ski areas, the small ski areas, the ones who tend to be a little underfunded, the ones who aren't getting the big corporate sponsors, the ones who have a bad season and could be in jeopardy. And I think we do hear more and more about the small community ski areas that may not open. They don't have the resources to put snowmaking in, to improve their infrastructure. So we can't let the entire growth of the industry rely on the backs of the tiny, small community ski areas in the face of climate change. I just see a big challenge coming there. So got to think a little bit about that ecosystem, support the small ski areas, get people who want to learn to ski today that opportunity, and then more and more will buy those passes in the long term. So lots to unpack there, but to me, we want to make sure it's affordable today.
Yeah, there is. And I mean, we talk about this a lot and, in our board meetings, but also just within the industry itself. The smaller ski area is overlooked, and a lot of the expense is talked about going to the larger resorts, and that just creates a bad rap. And the analogy I always use is golf. If you want to learn golf, go to your local 9-hole course and or go to the driving range. It's a really inexpensive way to experience the sport and decide if you want to get into it. And the same goes for winter sports, skiing and snowboarding. There's so many feeder resorts that can help you make that decision in a really affordable fashion.
And in a way that you feel like you can belong to it, because ultimately, like that local shop and that local mountain, that's the backdrop of the community, and the brands obviously want to sell into those locations, and like taking account of the fluency that the local retailer and the local hill has. Think about what that could do for a brand.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to build lifetime relationships. You're going to be part of this transformational experience when people are learning something that they may do for the rest of their lives, and you were there and you were a part of it. So, I think it's easy to focus on delivering marketing at scale at some of the larger resorts, but don't overlook some of the opportunities that come with the local resorts.
Yeah, you've said, Issa, only because I've been following you for 25 years as we've been friends. Your ability to help people as you lead them to see, guide, inspire, recognize, and empower. There's a lot there that Fuse can do, you can do, and you guys identify that quickly. Which of those come most naturally to you, and which do you have to work for to really help, whether it be a consumer or a brand, reach their goals?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me personally, I'm always about empowering our staff and our clients in a way that, they feel great about, the goal, right? So starting with collaboration and then moving to empowerment. So how can everybody at the table work to build a plan that makes sense based on the business objectives, the consumer insight, whatever that piece is. And then, how is everybody empowered to go deliver on whatever that campaign or experience might be? And whether you're the client and making sure that, you're providing great guidance and helping provide great feedback and helping us measure the results, or, the folks on our team who we want to feel, really empowered to go out and deliver something awesome. I mean, we work in an incredible industry. Every single day we get to come to work, and it's hard work, but it's awfully fun. And we get to do a lot of great things. The last thing I want to do is have somebody feel like they're not empowered to go out and actually do the job. So, I really want to make sure that I am setting up a situation that lets our team go out and everybody on that team feels like they're an important, critical member of the group.
I imagine that's something that has helped you evolve over the years, because the business that you're in, I think, is on the front lines of evolution, and people count on you as the guide. So I'm thinking about what you just said, and I'm thinking about some of our membership, and I know you two sit in board meetings together. Is there anything that you can talk about in terms of like the best way you've seen to manage and shape a nimble team or a nimble approach to your business?
Yes, I have one guiding principle that I think applies everywhere, and Nick may have heard me say this before, but I think lots of times people in collaborative environments, no matter what it is, they're just waiting to talk. And I think it's really important to listen and not just wait to talk. And so when you've got your idea, I always tell people, write it down. Like, don't lose that idea. It's very important. But you've got to make sure you listen, that you understand everybody's perspective in the room, that you can put yourself in their shoes. So then when it is your time to talk, you can deliver your idea. You can help people understand that idea and, if necessary, convince them that your idea might be the way to go. But I think there's a lot of great and smart and talented people in lots of rooms that we all sit in. And if everybody's just waiting to talk, that's not true collaboration. So that's just kind of my rule that I like to live by.
I would imagine, the way that you manage your staff, you manage your clients. You've been doing this Fuse has been in business for 30 years, which says a ton for a marketing firm. Your workplace culture is awesome. Every time I come to your office, I'm always inspired. Whether it's the mini ramp in the warehouse, the dogs, all the stuff that just kind of gives you comfort. You've been named the best place to work in the U.S. by Outside Magazine, not just once, but multiple times. Like, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with a label and a tag like that, and managing your staff in a way that you have, and I know a lot of your staff, and they've been around as long as you have, and as long as Fuse has. What a cool vibe and a cool company to manage, and I know it doesn't come easy.
Yeah, Nick, I'd actually say it does come easy when you think about putting your people first, right?
Yeah.
And we have been fortunate to win lots of awards for our workplace culture. So, we do some fun stuff here. Everybody gets a season pass. One that we actually borrowed from Jake and Donna Carpenter. If it snows 12 inches, we close up the office for a POW day. But also we give everybody Wednesday mornings off now. We call it Winter Wednesdays. We want everybody to get up on the mountain because if you live in Vermont, it's cold and dark here in the winter. And so we want people to get outside to reset and have fun. But then there's other things. We've got community gardens at the office because a lot of our staff live in apartments. They don't have, we have delicious fresh vegetables growing right outside the office, and they only have a little apartment without a yard. So there's things like that. We've had CSA groceries delivered here. One time we actually had a Volkswagen camper van people could take out on the weekend. So we're always trying to push to develop great benefits. And we consider this place a family, right? And so, it is about taking care of your family and making sure that we're setting up the very best place to work. We hope they'll stay here as long as I have, and many of them do. But we also hope that, if they do move on, they'll look back and they'll say, that was the best place I've ever worked. And that's kind of the North Star that we live by.
I think we would be remiss if we didn't get your take on kind of the globalization opportunity of snow sports. And as I said, you're a board member. I know you discuss this a lot. Can you please share with us some of the low-hanging fruit and maybe midterm opportunities you see with improving globalization or just the global community around our industry and community?
Yeah, I think there are, opportunities out there as, different areas of the world, in particular China, are growing and getting excited about winter sports. I think that, what we've got to do is create, back to my point earlier, an ecosystem of easy to learn ski and snowboard experiences. And so if you look at, Big Snow in New Jersey, right, the urban centers, are those the unlock? Not everybody lives near the mountains. And, there are certainly mountains around the world, but there are far more people who don't live near the mountains like we're lucky enough to do. So how do you create and almost bring the experience there. And we look at what's happening in surfing right now with surf parks. The sport is going to the people, and we're starting to see more people get more interested in surfing when they would never have thought about that because they didn't live on the coasts. And so I think not only is there an opportunity with kind of economic development in other parts of the world, but there's got to be, this ecosystem of learning that comes with it. So lots of great opportunities that are out there. I do think the upcoming Winter Olympics will also put a big, spotlight on the sport. And, if we look at other pro sports, when there are superstars that are recognizable, the sports tend to grow. And we need some great superstars, and there are already many out there, right? But global ambassadors of the sport that will continue to help push. And if you look at what Eileen Gu has done in China in particular, it's really incredible what an iconic athlete in snow sports can do to help grow the sport and just visibility of skiing in general.
I have to say, you've said so many great things here today, but the sport is going to the people is by far my favorite. And I know that's sort of something we've always thought was happening. But if you think about the challenges in business and kind of the transactional mindset we can fall into when we're afraid to think about letting it go there, that is just gold. I'm so happy that you said that. And I just really want to thank you for that. Like, that is obviously how you've built your empire and how you've helped all these incredible brands.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call it an empire, but it's a cozy little office here in Vermont, and we're very happy to be part of the winter sports ecosystem. And we love the cold, and we want everybody to love the cold. I think there's two types of people in winter. There are those who wake up and see snow in the forecast, and they're very happy, and there's those who see the snow in the forecast and they might get a little bit scared, right? How do we get everybody onto the camp of, a snow day is a good thing, not a bad driving day or a potential accident or an issue, right? And snow is polarizing. You really end up on one of those two sides of the opinion camp, and I always want more people to come to the fun side of snow.
I like the sounds of that too.
Awesome. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up today? You've been super generous with your time.
No, I think we've got one more big opportunity, and I would encourage, our members to think about that next group coming up, right? Everyone talks about, it's interesting, when you think about young people, you immediately say, oh, Gen Z is our target, right? So this new generation is coming up, 13 years and younger, that's Gen Alpha. And again, I told you, don't worry about the generation names, but you've got a new group, 13 and under, and their parents are millennials. And this is now a generation who's, got parents who skied and snowboard. They had, part of kind of the growth of snowboarding. Many of them may have lapsed out of the sport. So I think there's this great opportunity, not only to bring this next generation into the sport, but to potentially bring back some of the parents who may have grown up skiing and snowboarding, but, for any number of reasons, it hasn't been central to their lives. And I know many parents of Gen Alpha who are getting back into this space, and I think there's real untapped opportunity there. As the kids come into the sport, we bring some of the parents back in, and it could be a great opportunity for all the brands, the resorts, everybody in the business.
Very well said. Nick, do you have anything you want to add?
I mean, just in closing, I think if you're a brand and you're unsure of the next generation, and we certainly have experts in this space. Issa and Fuse are top of the list. We have great resources to connect you, answer questions, and even if you just want to have a conversation. So I think it's really really powerful that we're not afraid to ask questions, we're not afraid to reach out, and we have resources. So it's really cool to have Fuse and Issa right on speed dial. And even if you're just need a gut check, so it's super cool.
Thank you again for your service as a board member. Seriously, like we would have a huge gap if we didn't have you there, and we look forward to seeing where you steer that experience and learning from it, and hopefully we can all do a better job, like bringing our sport to the people. I love that.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me. Super excited for a great winter. I hope everybody out there is getting after it, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Issa. Appreciate it.